When I first heard about the HDR feature in the Canon 5D Mark III, my initial response was, this is probably some kind of gimmick. There's some raw settings that came with the 60D that are also in the 5D Mark III that I'm not super impressed with because they don't really give you that many editing options. For those of you that don't know, HDR stands for High Dynamic Range. And what it does is it allows you to take images in different exposures of the same subject matter at different brightnesses. Okay, so you can get details from both shadows as well as highlights and merge them together into a new image. And this is called HDR High Dynamic Range. HDR work, it's a little tricky and it's a little involved. It takes some time in the post-processing because there's this merging phase and there's a lot of little settings that you have to kind of tweak and massage. And then there's something called tone mapping, which allows you to process it even more, adding color and different types of sharpness or contrast. But if you're really good at it, you can come up with these just tremendous, beautiful, painted looking like images. Now, there's a few things about HDR in order to make it work. Typically, you have to have your camera on a tripod, and typically your subject matter cannot move at all. If your subject matter moves, the merging of those three images is not going to be clean, and there's going to be footprints, and those footprints are going to be distracting. The HDR feature in the 5D Mark III, there's going to be something here for everybody. I took it down to the beach just out of curiosity to play with it, handheld, and took pictures of moving subjects such as trees blowing in the wind or even the ocean waves, and it did pretty well. I was actually very impressed that it was able to take these images and combine them in camera very quickly. There are 5 different tone mapping type settings in the camera. The only 2 that I would recommend are the natural, which is really no tone mapping, and there's also an art vivid setting, which is pretty much like an increase of contrast in some of the saturation. I would definitely recommend going out and playing with this feature because it's very cool. There is a dedicated creative photo button on the back of your camera. It's in the top left-hand side of the camera, and if you push that button, you'll be able to access your HDR feature and select either which tone mapping you want, as well as if you want it to continue after you take that first shot, as well as do you want it to save all the images or just the final HDR image. And definitely go out and play around with this. The reason why I like it is because it's quick and it's easy to use. You don't necessarily need a tripod, which means that, you know, if you just want to kind of see what the image is going to look like before you invest all this time into it, it can really save you, because I've done HDR work and spent hours on an image and realized it wasn't really good subject matter. So if you're a beginning or an intermediate photographer, the HDR feature is going to be awesome because it's going to allow you to get into HDR without having to invest a lot of money into a program or a lot of time into massaging it, and you can get some really nice images in camera. If you are a pro or an advanced HDR user, you're still going to like this feature because it's going to allow you to preview your subject matter before you set your tripod out and do it right. I mean, I don't think this is going to replace traditional HDR stuff, but yes, it is going to save you some time. In any event, if you found this video helpful, I have 2 new videos out that you're definitely going to want to check out. The first is the Canon 5D Mark III crash course. I'll take you through the whole camera, the menus, all the features. It is going to be a huge time saver. And I also have a lighting crash course that I spent 3.5 years working on. You're definitely going to want to check that out too. You can order it from the following link.